All right, good evening, ma. I hope that this one will be okay. I'm not really seeing my mic responding. I don't know. Okay, let me try to make use of external mic. Let me try to make use of external mic if that will help. Okay. Hmm. So I hope and I would like you to be here so I will know if you are able to hear me or not. Okay. In any case, let me try to share. So this is PED 112. PED 112. And that is reading in early childhood primary education. Reading in early childhood primary education. That is all about the course. And so far in the course, we have talked about some things like, please, before I go deep, I hope you can hear me, Ma. I don't know, the mic is not really moving, like, it's not even moving as if I'm talking, but I just hope you can hear me. Let me hear from your side so I will know before I move on. Okay, all right. So I just want to quickly remind us of the things we have done so far. We have talked about the language skills in this course. We talk about we've talked about connecting the four language skills. And we talk about listening, speaking, of course, reading and writing. So we we then move to the nature and importance of reading. We talked about the nature of reading, and after studying the nature of reading, we talk about the goals of learners in reading or in the reading process. We also talk about the sub skills that is required in reading, and now we are moving to core characters from today, the core characters of reading. And the first one we want to look at is that reading is not just a basic skill. We have core characters to study. We also look at reading is a complex process. We also look at reading is problem solving. We look at fluent reading is not the same as decoding. And we look at reading is situationally proficient readers share some key characteristics. Excuse me. To the first concern, which is reading is just a basic, sorry, it's not just a basic skill. Many people think of reading as a skill that is taught once and for the first few years of school. Seen this way, reading is a simple process. When you look at it that way, that reading is just what you teach children at the early stage or stages in the primary school. And once you teach them, that is all, they are done with anything called reading. They now know how to read, they are now good in reading. Well, if that is how simple it is, then reading would have been said to be simple. Now, readers figure out how to pronounce each word in a text and then automatically comprehend the meaning of the words as they do with their everyday spoken language. This is a wrong understanding of reading. Reading is continuously developing, reading is a continuously developing skill whose goal is lifelong readers who can read critically any subject. If it is that simple, or it was that simple, like people with that perspective of you just teaching children how to read in primary school, this is two-letter words, three-letter words, and then that is what they know how to read. It means that when you open a scientific textbook today, you will not have issues pronouncing some words or even understanding the meaning of some words. It's a continuous, in fact, as good as some people may be today, even teachers, when they open some books again, they will still need to go and check the dictionary. What's the meaning of this word? That is how rugged reading is. It's a continuous process, it's a lifelong learning. As long as you live and you are reading, you will keep learning skills and developing yourself in the act of reading. So it requires constant practice, development, and refinement. What are we talking about now? We are trying to say that reading is not just a basic skill. It's not just a basic skill that it's been inculcated in the learner in primary school and that is all. No. Reading is a continuous process. It develops over time. With time, reading gets better. It is, I don't think this is even something we should cram. It is something we obviously know. It is not learned at it is not learned all at once. It improves through practice, which is the basis for success in all content areas. For nearly all adults, the act of reading has become an unconscious activity. Its process is stored in type of memory called implicit or unconscious memory. Sometimes you read even unconsciously. In the early stages, every step was a conscious process that had to be learned. What they are trying to say is that you get so deep into reading that in some point in life you read even unconsciously. Notwithstanding, when you started learning how to read, it was a deliberate act, it was a conscious act, like your mind was there, you do it consciously. But sometimes in life, when you become an adult, you find out that you are even reading unconsciously. Now, eventually, with a great deal of practice, reading gradually becomes a seamless, automatic activity carried out by the brain without conscious awareness. Teachers can be a tremendous resource in developing this process. So the main idea you as a teacher should pick from this point is that reading is a continuous process which develops over time with practice. That is the overall thing we should pick out from this paragraph. Reading is a continuous process which develops over time with practice. It is not just a basic skill that you just learn once and for all in primary school and that is all. No, it continues to develop over time. I hope I am still audible, and my screen is still visible. I need to be checking that time to time now because it seems the network tonight, I don't want us to skip any class again, but this rain of a thing is causing a lot. So let me take an icebreaker to check if you are with me. All right, thank you. So I will just drop an icebreaker there for you to check what you have learned from that paragraph one. Now, the second character of reading we're going to look at Reading is a complex process. That is the next thing we want to look at. Reading is a complex process. Now, reading is not merely a receptive process of picking up information from the page in a word by word manner. Rather, it is a complex cognitive process in which the reader, through interaction with the text, construct meaning out of what he or she is reading. You know, if you look at what happens whenever you are reading, just take a deep look into the order of things. You find out that as much as your eyes is navigate, or sorry, your eyes are navigating the material, the text, the one you are seeing written there, your brain is processing to get meaning to what you are reading. So a lot of things are happening when you are reading. It's a whole lot of process combined together. The brain is working hard, breaking down the meaning of each word for your understanding. As you are reading them, you're also trying to understand what you are reading. Now, in identifying and making sense of the words being read, readers employ orthographic and contextual information together with the knowledge and expectations they bring to the reading episode. What we're trying to say is, if you should pick a book now on finance, and all your life you have never studied anything about finance, you are not even good in managing your own personal finance, you spend anyhow, you are not good, now, if that is the case, if you pick up a book on finance, it will be very hard for you to understand it. Why? You don't have a prior knowledge on the subject matter. So what I'm trying to say here is that reading combines what you already know about that thing you want to read with what you are the new thing you are discovering about it. So if you don't have a prior knowledge, a background knowledge of what you want to read, it will be very difficult to read that material. That's why reading is a complex knowledge. What we're just trying to say is that as much as your brain is actively involved in getting the meaning of the words you are trying to read or you are reading, there is something important also taking place in the act of reading, and that is background knowledge. Background knowledge also plays a vital role in your understanding of whatsoever you are reading. So you cannot just say reading is a simple process. If a lot of things like that are happening simultaneously as you are reading, it means reading is a complex process. Now, in other words, reading involves the use of some mental processes, evoking voices, memories, knowledge, and experiences from previous times and other places to decode the printed symbols that you are reading. Now, it is a complex interaction between the text and the reader, which is shaped by the reader's prior knowledge, experiences, attitude, and language community, which is culturally and socially situated. In addition to the reading process, reading process requires creativity and critical analysis. It requires creativity and critical analysis. So during reading, what happens? The reader relates dynamically with a changing, motion or pace. Relates dynamically with the text as she tries to elicit the meaning using various kinds of knowledge like linguistic knowledge, systematic and tactic knowledge. Sometimes she struggles trying to relate what is being read to her existing knowledge and understanding. So in doing this, she might have stumbled over unfamiliar words and tried to interpret them from the context. It's a very complex. What we are just trying, all these explanations they are trying to give you is trying to tell you that reading is not a simple thing happening in one single head simultaneously. Makes it qualifies for a complex process. While experienced readers read, they sorry, this happens a lot, especially when you're reading all those novels. When you're reading novels, you find out that the images of what you are reading, your brain is creating them. So that fascination is making that reading to be what it's making it enjoyable. Your brain is creating the scenes, even though you are not there. Those are just text you are reading, but the text are, they are forming up to to create images of those scenes that appear in the story that you are reading. That's what we're trying to say. You can see how complex reading can be. When you are reading some things, your mind is already creating them. So you are living in the presence or you are living within the context of that book at that moment, even though you were not there when some of those or when those events actually took place. You created them, then you live in them superficially. That is a very complex thing. The mind seems to be working hard when you are reading. As they read further, they test this involving meaning and monitor their understanding, paying attention to inconsistencies that arise as they interact with the text. Now, if they notice that they are losing the meaning as they read, they draw on a variety of strategies to readjust their understandings. Oftentimes, they have an internal conversation with the author, silently agreeing or disagreeing with what is being read. These are things that are obvious, like we experience them. It's not something to start cramming or putting your, it's what you know. When you are reading some text, sometimes your mind seems to be finding errors. Oh, they did not spell this thing very well. Oh, this expression is wrong. And sometimes you start asking, if this person say this is what this thing is actually, this is not totally true, because based on what me I experienced last week, I don't. You are internally discussing with excuse me, with the author of that book, even though the author is not there with you. That is a complex process. They come to text they come to text with purposes that guide their reading, taking a stance toward the text and responding to the ideas that take shape in the conversation between the text and the self. All these mental processes seem automatic for an experienced reader. If you are an experienced reader, all those things seems to flow in naturally. But for an emergent reader, the struggle makes reading a difficult skill to develop. Imagine all that happening at the same time. It's not like imagination is going on, then later on understanding. Every process is, you know, circulating, occurring at the same time. That is a whole lot of work on the brain. That is how complex reading is. That is how complex reading is. Now, reading is problem solving. Reading is problem solving. Now, we've looked at three things about reading. Reading is not just a basic skill, reading is complex. And the third one we're looking at now is reading is problem solving. Reading is not just a basic skill, reading is complex. And now, reading is problem solving. I hope I'm not rushing. I hope the speed is manageable, because I'm feeling like my voice is somehow in a hurry. I don't know where I'm going to. If the speed is too much, you let me know so I will calm down and we'll go slower. Now, reading is problem solving. That's the next thing we want to look at. Reading is problem solving. And how does it qualify for problem solving? We'll check that in this reading. So give me a few minutes. Okay. So reading is problem solving. Reading is essentially a problem solving task. Why? Because comprehending what is read requires effort, planning, self monitoring, strategy selection, and reflection. What qualifies reading as a problem solving? One of it is the process of understanding what you are reading. It's you trying to solve a riddle. The riddle is hidden in text. You read it and then you are trying to decode it to understand what is written there. That is solving the problem. When reading a text, a mental representation of the text is created by the reader. We've mentioned that before. You imagining what you are reading, which describes how the reader understands the text. In fact, multiple levels of representation are involved in making meaning. The reader works to make sense of a text, not just from the words and sentences on the page, but also from the ideas, memories, and knowledge evoked by those words and sentences. Sometimes when you see a word, maybe that was a word you probably saw for the first time in the movie, and it seems to, the moment you see the word in the book, it triggers something in your mind. You go back to that movie, you kind of try to check when it was mentioned, why the word was mentioned then, and your mind start relating so many things together. Although at first glance, reading may seem to be passive, just solitary thing you are doing and simple. It is in truth active, not passive. Well, it's very easy to have the opinion that reading is passive. But when you go and when you become a professional reader, or you get engrossed in reading, you know that it is an active process. It's populated by a rich mix of voices and views, those of the author, of the reader, and of others the reader has heard, read about, and otherwise encountered in life. No, these things are nothing strange to us. We truly understand what they're trying to say here, because we experience, except of course if you have not been reading at all before. Knowledge is not just used to situate a text. It is used in all phases of reading, from thinking about a text before reading to evaluate its central theme, or arguing during or after reading. Readers continually look for connections between the ideas in the text and their prior knowledge. There is a continuous attempt for that. This thing I'm reading, what do I know about it before? So your mind is both going back and forth. This is something I've seen now. Oh, if they say that uh, uh, police is your friend, well, I've had that before. But the last time I had an issue, somebody was, somebody hit my car and we had to go to the police station. Police is not my friend. I don't believe that. There will be this conflict in your mind that trying to agree with what you are just seeing in connection to what you already know or what you've experienced before. Prior knowledge can, in this way, help readers draw inferences about an author's intention and beliefs, and can serve as a basis for acquiring knowledge. For pupils who approach reading as a problem-solving activity, they take an active and strategic approach to reading and are metacognitively aware of how well they understand what they read. That is, they keep track of their reading thinking process. What is this part that says reading is uh, problem solving trying to say? The process involved in trying to understand a text turns you to someone solving a problem. Now, the text itself becomes a problem that has posed itself to you. You finding all possible means, creating pictures, imagining things, connecting the dots between what you already know and what you are saying, you know, all that are now strategies you are using to solve the problem of the reading that is before you. That is why reading qualifies to be called problem solving. Problem solving. Now, fluent reading is not the same as the coding. Fluent reading is not the same as the coding. Okay, so we are now going to another mental argument, or not totally an argument. We will just look at it. Excuse me. So sorry, I'm trying to plug my device. I think it's running out of power. So the next thing we are going into is reading. So a fluent reading. When we say fluent reading, I know you understand what we're trying to say. Those that have become masters in reading, they read and the thing seems to be flowing as their natural uh, way of doing things, or like something that is already a part of them. Skillful reading does require readers to carry out certain tasks in a fairly automatic manner. Decoding skills, okay, in a fairly automatic manner. They have become so used to it that they don't struggle. All this issue of trying to connect the dots with your experience, trying to understand the meaning of the words, trying to it flows like water. They are so used, they have read so many times, so many books. In fact, they just flow naturally. So decoding skills is one of the things they exhibit. Quick word recognition and ready knowledge of relevant vocabulary, for example, are essential to successful reading. However, they are by no means sufficient, especially when texts are complex or challenging. You know that if you are a fluent reader, for instance, now, you are a very fluent reader. Even though you are a fluent reader, if they bring all those medieval age English, old King James version for you to read, that is when you know that you can still struggle, even with your fluency. What they're trying to say here is that the coding skills is they are very important in recognition of words and the understanding of those words. But in some difficult situation, one can still struggle. However, they are by no means sufficient, especially when the texts are complex and or challenging. Yet, many discussions about struggling readers confuse decoding with fluency. Now, the main idea of this fourth point, that fluent reading is not the same as decoding, is we want to see the difference between fluent reading and decoding. We want to quickly understand what differentiates decoding from fluency. Now, we say decoding skills, they are used for quick word recognition and ready knowledge of relevant vocabulary. That is decoding. Like the moment I see the word, I am able to understand. Okay, like if I see the word judicious now, because I already know over time that judicious is, it means acting wisely, being wise, doing something wisely. So I already know that, so I'm not struggling to get it. But if I get to complex situation, decoding may not help me, because when I don't even know the meaning of the word, so what am I decoding? Now, fluency derives from the reader's ability not just to decode or identify individual words, but also to quickly process larger language unit. Larger language unit. You know that, for instance, when you are reading, especially vocally, like you are reading out, even if you don't know the meaning of the word, but your ability to decode, like be able to pronounce those words, like no word is challenging to you to pronounce. You read fluently now, you read faster, but that doesn't mean that you're understanding what you're reading. It's possible. So for fluency, you can be fluent and not have understanding. That's very, very possible. Now, fluency, like other dimensions of reading, varies according to the text at hand. When readers are unfamiliar with the particular language structures and features of a text, their language processing ability breaks down. That's what we're trying to say. The language processing ability breaks down. Why? When they meet unfamiliar words. This means, for example, that teachers cannot assume that pupils who fluently read narrative or literary text will be equally fluent with expository text. It begins to develop when pupils have frequent opportunities to read texts that are easy for them. Multiple rereadings of more difficult texts help expand a reader's fluency. Now, also, fluency grows as readers have opportunities, support, and encouragement to read a wide range of text types about a wide range of topics. I want to believe that this part has given us a clear picture of fluency and uh, reading. Sorry, and decoding. You've seen what decoding means, trying to derive meaning from the record, but I want to isolate decoding from uh, fluency. What explicitly isolates decoding from fluency? I would like us to uh, okay, let's see. Now, it's also sorry, I think my attention is divided here. Now, we are trying to isolate fluency on one side and what do we call it? Uh, okay, decoding. For decoding, according to that part that we read, you can see that it says, I'm sorry for that, my slow motion. I'm trying to reply someone here. So decoding is seen as you being able to recognize words when you see, let's say, photosynthesis. If you are good in decoding, you literally will recognize that this is photosynthesis. Looking at the letters, that is decoding. While fluency is now decoding is now you understand that this the combination of these letters is is known as photosynthesis. But fluency is the ability for you to read that photosynthesis correctly, not for you to say maybe photosynthesis. You understand? That is the difference. Uh, Decoding is just trying to check what is this word? What word is this? Fluency is how well you read that word. For decoding, that is the first thing you will know. You first learn decoding. Like, okay, A and an is and. Uh, uh, let's say you in like for the puppies now, you tell them that when you have boy, that is boy. What they're trying to do there is decoding. But the ability to see boy in a piece of writing and say boy instantly and continue reading, that one is fluency. Sorry, I'm just trying to give us clearer picture of the two. The two. So a learner sounds out letters and try to blend them into word. That is decoding. But reading them smoothly without stopping at every word, that is fluency. That is the difference between the two of them. Mm, okay. So you seem to have deleted a lot of messages. I don't know what you deleted. So far so good. We have looked at some characters of reading. We started from reading is not just a basic skill. Reading is a complex process. Uh, what is that third one? Reading is problem solving, and this fourth one now, Fluent reading is not the same as decoding, but most people do see it as the same thing. Now, the fifth one is reading is simultaneously bounded. I have explained this one along the line where we're talking about reading is not just a simple skill. You find that there are so many things are happening at the same time, simultaneously, as you are reading. So reading is simultaneously bounded. What do they have for us here is something we've already uh, talked about. A person who understands one type of text is not necessarily proficient at reading all types of text. A good reader of a motorcycle repair sorry, a good reader of a motorcycle repair manual can make sense of directions that might stump an English literature professor, but may not be able to comprehend a chemistry textbook or text. And a chemistry teacher may feel completely insecure when trying to understand some history text on a colleague's course or course reading list. In other words, reading is influenced by situational factors, among them the experiences readers have had with particular kinds of text and reading for particular purposes. And just as proficient readers do not necessarily read all text with equal ease or success, a poor or struggling reader will not necessarily have a hard time with all text. What they are trying to say here is that it is a two-way thing. As much as those who are good in reading will not always be good in all type of reading. The same way those who are very poor in reading will not always be poor well, like somebody that is poor in reading now, he will be good in reading slowly. That one is good because they want to pronounce each word one by one, so they have something they are good at. So somebody that is very fluent in reading now, you find it difficult to be reading slowly, picking out words one by one because they're already a fluent reader. That's what I'm trying to, because your experience on the different types of reading you have acquainted yourself with will determine your position in reading. So reading is simultaneously, sorry, am I saying simultaneously? You should have corrected me. Situationally, sorry. It is, I've just been looking at it that what they explain here does not have to do it, has nothing to do with simultaneous. So it is situational that is there, situationally bounded. Situation that surrounds that reading will determine the fluency or the nature. So a good reader, we have some lapses where they are not good. We have a poor reader also, we have some places where they are good. So that is what we are trying to say. Reading is situationally bounded. I may be good in reading history, but not good in reading calculation text or mathematics. You may be good in chemistry, but not good in history reading, and so on and so forth. That's what I'm trying to say. So the situation you have been used to over time will determine how well you read a particular type of text. Now, the sixth one says proficient readers share some key characters. Proficient readers share some key characteristics, and those are the characters we'll be studying below. I hope we still have the time. Well, we still have some time left. Now, researchers emphasize different characters of good or proficient reader. Researchers on reading have agreed on a set of key habits of proficient readers. Good readers are known to possess the following characters, and those characters are: they are mentally engaged. When you see someone reading a novel and the person has been creating scenes in his imaginative head of or mental thinking, there is something that will happen. The person is so mentally engaged that if you say anything around that person, the person is likely not going to grab what you are saying. In fact, the person will be so engrossed with the book that he or she will not want to leave the book at that moment. The brain is actively engaged. So one character of a proficient reader is mental engagement. The second one is motivated to read and to learn. They have this motivation. It's in them, it's inherent. They want to read, they want to learn. So there are people that are inquisitive in the act of reading and learning. If you are not motivated to read and you are not having the desire to learn, reading will be a very, very difficult task for that person. Person will not want to read. Motivation is very important in reading. As much as mental engagement is there, motivation is there as the second one. Another one is socially active around reading tasks. Socially active around reading tasks. All proficient readers are socially active around uh, reading tasks. Now let's try to look at this. I'm trying to give you an icebreaker before we move on. I've been talking for long. So let me try to drop the icebreaker as you. So I have an icebreaker there, man, for you to attempt. So I have an icebreaker there for you to attempt. Yes, you didn't wait for the question. Now you want to provide the answer. So let me try to talk more on that point that says socially active around reading task. And what it means is that a good reader will not read in isolation all the time. They actively interact with other people before, during, or after reading in order to improve their understanding and share ideas. So what we're trying to say is that even when there is an avenue for discussion with other people, other classmates, other readers, asking questions, sharing ideas, a proficient reader can still read in that kind of condition. Not somebody that will say, me, I can only read when I'm alone, when I'm in isolation, when I'm in a silent place. No, a proficient reader can read even where there are social activities like interaction, sharing of ideas, participation in group work or study is ongoing. That is the meaning of that point. Now, strategic in monitoring the interactive processes that assist comprehension, such as setting goals that shape their reading processes, monitoring the emerging understanding of a text, and coordinating a variety of comprehension strategies to control the reading process. They are strategic in monitoring the processes that assist their comprehension, that helps them to understand what they are reading. We are done with that part of the material, and I'm so happy that we were able to cover that much today. The next thing we are going into is reading in relation to other language skills. Don't forget that reading is not the only language skill we have. We've talked about writing, speaking, and so on. Just about 4 or 5 of them. Now, we are going to look at reading hand in hand with other language skills. The relationship, how reading relates, or how it is being influenced, or how it influenced other language skills. So, all right, so I'm with you. You may drop your question. I think you dropped something in my DM. Is that the question? It's even obvious I don't usually give room for questions. I used to forget to ask. Okay, I'm with you. The question. Yes, I've seen something here. You said multiple rereadings of more difficult text help expand the reader's fluency. Okay, so what is the question? So I'm waiting for your question as we deliberate on that. Hmm. Okay, this seems like a long question, but let's play it and see.
When we were last semester, when we there's a part of GST 101 that says that taught us the speed at which we should be reading. That if we read at a certain 200 or 300
Yes, the reading speed.
at a certain
Reading speed.
speed, that we're
Mm.
going to get minimal um, understanding.
Mm.
In a nutshell, it discourages reading twice. They call it regression or regressive. But that text that I sent to you under fluency and decoding said one can reread. That the more ones reread, the better the fluency.
Okay, I get the point. Now let me try to isolate two things. What your GST 101 was trying to achieve in you is speed. Speed. What we are talking about here is fluency. Now let me just try to bring up real points that will help you to understand it. You see, the regression that was mentioned in GS 101 is when somebody is so dull that if you give the person a paragraph to read, and you know that without understanding, reading is useless. Without understanding, if you are reading and you are not understanding, the person is just wasting his or her time. So we say that reading is useless without understanding. Regression in reading is when somebody you have a group of 10 pupils in class now, and you give all of them one storybook to read, just not even storybook, one paragraph to read. And then after reading, you ask all of them, and 9 of them were able to tell you what that passage was all about. Then here comes one student. He has read it the same time the others read it, but he cannot say anything on it. He said he doesn't understand. Then you ask him to read again. After that second time again, he said, well, he said something that is not even aligning with what is in the listing. Then you tell him to read again. So when that student read like 10 times, that was when he was able to say, oh, I understand now. It's like that kind of person is a slow learner. That is what we call regression. That one has something to do with fluency. You understand? Rereading a material, you understand, for maybe proper understanding or to gain more speed, that one is different from somebody that is suffering from some reading dilemma, that if I don't read, like, no, there are some people like that. I don't know if you have encountered them either in your class or anything. There are some people that if they have not read something like 15, 20 times, in fact for days, this one that some students will carry book 1 week to exam and they will still pass the exam. Some people cannot dare it to. They must have been reading that material from beginning of the semester, read the material like 10 times over and over again before they will even understand anything in the material. So that is the difference. So what just one was saying is that you have, if you are building your speed, your reading speed, you understand, regression is not something you should dwell on. So somebody that is suffering from regression will have a very slow speed, because you will have to be picking the words one by one, and even with that, there is no guarantee that you will understand. So that one is different from me reading and rereading again. If you read a book now and the book is so interesting that you love it, you may want to read it again. That one is not because you do not understand it the first time you read it. It's because the book is interesting to you. So you rereading that book is not because you want to understand it more. The first time you read it, you've understood it. That one is different from somebody that is suffering from regression. That one read it the first time, he did not even understand anything. So he's trying to read it again. to see maybe you will understand. So that is the difference between the two. One is lack of understanding. The other one is you are reading again for pleasure or to improve your speed. So you can read a book for building of speed. If that, okay, for instance, you are in a place now that is only one book you have in your library, in your shelf at home. If you are trying to build yourself up in the act of reading, it's only that book you will be reading all the time now. Now, the reason why you are reading it all the time is not because you don't understand the book the first time you've read it. Okay, why do we read the Bible every, practically myself now, I read the Bible every year from beginning to the end. I have my daily portion I must read every day once I wake up. I won't do anything. So is it because I don't understand the Bible the first time I've read it completely? No, I'm doing that because maybe some attached to it that I have to read my Bible on daily basis or so. So it's not because I'm a regression learner that I don't understand what was in it when I read it first. It's because I find some things to keep pushing me to read it more and more on daily basis. So that is the difference. Thank you, ma. So is there any other question? If you don't have any other question, I think we will like to end the class here. And in the next class, we will start from reading in relation to other language skills. We want to put them side by side. When you are reading, do you oftentimes listen? When you are reading, do you oftentimes speak? When you are reading, do you oftentimes write? We'll look at those in the next class. Thank you for your time and do enjoy the rest of your evening.